Complètement zéro choice.
La même journée que la dernière investigation de taxi. Tu sais, il y avait une stationnement ridicule, fâché, rien fâché, tout ça. Il n'a même pas voulu négocier avec moi. Ouais, même pas.
Bonjour et bienvenue au Crystal Please. Pouvez-vous confirmer votre lettre d'équipe?
Si.
Est-ce que vous préférez la lecture des règlements en français ou en anglais?
En anglais, s'il vous plaît.
For this case, you'll have 20 minutes to make your presentation in front of the judges. If your presentation lasts under 18 minutes, you'll receive a 1-point penalty for every 30 seconds. If your presentation lasts 15 minutes, your team will receive a score of 0 at the general ranking for this case. If after 20 minutes you have not completed the presentation, you will be stopped to move on to the period of questions. At the end of the presentation, the judges will have 5 minutes to ask their questions. I remind the jury that it is mandatory to ask a minimum of 1 question during this period. If after 5 minutes you have not finished answering the question, you will be stopped. Throughout the presentation, I will indicate the remaining time using cardboards at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds. I will make a countdown using my finger for the last 10 seconds. I remind you that it's prohibited to say the name of your university, you will receive a penalty. I also remind the public that it is prohibited to use any electronic devices during the presentation and that the public must stay quiet until the end of the period of questions. Before we begin, I'm asking the room to turn off their cell phones and put them on mute so that we don't interrupt the presentation. I will now ask the judges to present themselves, and after you'll be free to start your presentation.
You're very charged as this art representative. If you know, VP Finance and so forth.
Helen, I'm a director of operation at Symphony. Hi, I'm Charlotte, I'm the acquisition manager at Symphony.
I think I'm a retired professor of university management.
So, when I was a kid, I grew up always playing team sports. And it became evident from the beginning that a team is only as strong as its weakest link. And so, it didn't matter how talented any new players on the team were. The team would not be able to maximize its potential unless the link between this new player and the rest of the team was solid.
Dear Solotech, we are PHP Consultant. My name is Phil, this is my colleague Hannah and my colleague Phil. And we're here to assist you implement a better acquisition integration, considering cultural differences as well as geographical distances. We've considered this mandate through key 3 questions. The first one is how can you locate the issues faster during the integration? The second one is how can you better support the employees throughout that integration? And the last one is how can you maintain your strong and reputable culture? For the analysis, as mentioned, your strong culture and reputation is known worldwide. People are paying for you to stay longer to make sure that you will provide the services in the cities that are having long-term period breaks over certain concerts. And this is why we think the AdCore framework is ideal for you to keep that culture and while integrating new companies in your portfolios. The AdCore framework is to create awareness of the changes of the acquisition. Then you can show the desire of that change by showing the knowledge of why you should change, and then the ability of how you'll change and reinforcing that change to make sure it is successful. And let's dive into details. For the awareness, you need to communicate to senior management how it's going to change, why you're going to change, by having face-to-face newsletter communication. And then you need to say who is Solotech, communicating your culture, and what will be happening in the next few weeks or months to make sure that the employees know what will happen. And also letting know the middle management of the changing, how this will directly impact them, so they will feel confident on why the change will happen. For the design, of course, some people will be resisting to that change. Some employees will see no value in that change, and this is why we use the process top 10 steps to make sure that these changes are mitigated. The steps are from listening to what happens to finally using the money and power to make sure that the resistance doesn't happen. For the knowledge, you're bringing new employees that maybe don't know how Solotech operates and the culture of it, and this is why you bring new knowledge into it. You need to have change champions that will communicate that knowledge and make sure that the new employees are aware of what will be happening and how Solotech operates. And also the very important part is to have a HR department compare job position between the two companies, making sure that we have equivalent job positions that are fair for both the new employees and the current Solotech employees. And then the ability, having on-site training for the new employees, showing how you operate, how you do things to make sure that your quality of services is the same throughout the position and it does not impact anything. And finally, reinforcing that change. Saying that it will be successful and showing why the change is important is key for its success. And this is why you need to keep reinforcing by collecting feedback, make sure that new employees and the current employees are satisfied with that change. And the key takeaway here is to use the ADKAR framework throughout the integration process to have a successful acquisition. By acquisition, of course, there will be a change in management, and we separate this in 3 key phases. The first phase is to prepare. If you don't prepare for the changes, you'll have hiccups throughout the process, and you don't want that. To prepare, you need solid foundation. By solid foundation is to analyze the acquisition throughout the whole outside and inside perspective, to see all the changes, how each employee will be affected by it. And then you need to manage that change. Collecting feedback and see how people are reacting to it is key to make sure that you can, by the 3rd phase, reinforce that change, overcoming obstacles, and then celebrating the success of a great acquisition. And to mitigate changes, you need to be transparent. Being transparent to employees will give them trust in you, and they'll be loyal and trust that the change is a key step in the company. Afterwards, you need to assign more tasks to the change champions. They'll feel confident, and they will know exactly what to do with the new employees, as they'll be hands-on, helping them to integrate in the company. And how do you choose these change champions? These change champions are role models. They'll be key employees that have great communication skills, very cooperative, and most importantly, see the same vision and objectives for this acquisition that will be transmitted to the new employees. And therefore, you should implement change champions throughout the integration process so that the new employees will see the same culture and have the great reputation that you have.
Now, before providing you with reasonable alternatives, we think it's a crucial step to go through the employee journey of a newly acquired company. So we separated this into 3 different steps: before the integration of new employees takes place, during the integration, and post-integration. And so in the journey phase, in the past, your past acquisitions, HR has not been onboarded from the start. And so this means, as my colleague mentioned, that you haven't had any employee job comparisons, and there hasn't been any standardization of work contracts. And so what's the impact on employees at this stage? Well, newly acquired employees don't know yet what their position is within the newly acquired Solotech. Do they even know if they have a job, or are they going to be eliminated once the acquisition and due diligence process gets completed? Next, when employees are actually integrated into Solotech. In the past, there hasn't been any actual standardization of work methods or commonly agreed work methods across the company. And so it's almost as if your Solotech and your newly acquired company are operating independently when they should be working together. This causes your operational conflicts and friction. So Solotech employees, they feel like their methods that have been so successful and led to their greatness in the past are being challenged. So this leads them to frustration. Then your newly acquired employees, who thought they were being hired for their skill sets, what they've been good at, also feel like they're being challenged and they're not welcome in the new Solotech. And then post-integration. So this has to do with monitoring. How could, in the past, there hasn't been any formal systems in place for this to monitor employee engagement and satisfaction. And so up until this point, Solotech employees and the newly acquired employees, all they've known is the friction between the 2 companies. And so this starts to create doubt as to whether Solotech can actually manage its acquisitions successfully or not. And so this just highlights the importance of having a strong culture promoted at every step along the way.
And this is why we bring you 3 alternatives to have a successful acquisition integration. These alternatives are having a new and improved culture while acquiring a new company. The second one is to have a distinct and separate culture, having the new company operate and have its own culture along the way. And the third one is to have a status quo, to keep it Solotech's way and the only way, and not change anything while acquiring a new company. These alternatives were discussed in 3 key considerations. The first one is your culture. The second one, your operations. And the third one, your employees coming home. For the new and improved culture, the Solotech's culture can only improve. Having new aspect of the culture that you see better in the new company will improve your culture. And same goes for your operations. If a department department of the new company is more efficient, more profitable, there's nothing holding you back from integrating that way into your company and being more profitable yourself. And finally, the employee community. Your current employees are extremely happy with you guys. They love the way that you operate, they love the way that you treat them, and this is why having a new and improved culture will not change the way that they see the company, but only help the new employees better feel integrated into your company. Having a distinct and separate culture will only lead to negative feedback. Having two separate cultures, two separate operations will be extremely difficult for you guys to manage because the resources will not be shared, the ERP might not be integrated correctly, and it will be extremely difficult to track everything. And this is why the status quo is a little better since you will have the same way that you operate currently. You have a great operation as it is currently, but you will not operate as efficiently as you can. And your employees current will be still happy, but the new ones will be forced to have a culture that they may or may not like. And this is why we suggest that you have a new and improved culture while integrating the acquisition. And I will pass on to Hannah to talk to you about the implementation.
Thank you, Phil. And we're so proud to present to you today our implementation for your company. So, our goal for your implementation will be to determine how you can improve the integration of your acquisitions, taking into consideration the cultural differences as well as geographic distance. And we further broke this down into 3 phases: avant, pendant, et après. And let's dive a little bit deeper into the avant phase, where our tactics will be strengthening your current practices, and the KPI here is to achieve a 50 or higher Net Promoter Score. So, let's take a look. You must solve your current shortcomings to pave the path to success. So first of all, updating the job application language on your website. Currently, it's only in French. So, by implementing an English option, you can easily compare the job positions between Solotech and the target company, as well as achieve a greater access to talent. Secondly, standardizing contracts. As of right now, it does take a while to achieve contracts for future employees, and you must abide by international laws. So by standardizing these employment contracts, you can increase your overall efficiency during this phase. And finally, updating the salary structure. Again, it takes several years to finalize these different salaries for different positions. So we suggest that you determine a salary range for different positions of the company to minimize internal equity loss. Issues, my apologies. So now we want to suggest bringing HR into the due diligence phase so that you can integrate successfully. So we suggest that you actually implement a scorecard. So what the scorecard will do is it will evaluate all target companies against Solotech's culture. And the goal here is that by acquiring companies that score high on the scorecard, they'll integrate really smoothly into your culture. Next, change champions. Like my colleague Phil had mentioned earlier, introducing change champions into the workplace will be really great for transparency and employee motivation during this phase. And then eliminating employees. Unfortunately, you will have to eliminate some redundant employees. And as though this is unfortunate, it will increase overall efficiency and decrease inefficiency costs. And finally, on a brighter note, you will have to promote employees. So by promoting acquired executives as partners of Solotech, you can reduce the attrition rates of these individuals. So we also suggest that you hold town hall meetings so that the target company employees, as well as your employees, can prepare for the acquisition process. And some of the key topics to be discussed in these town hall meetings are introducing the figureheads and their roles, as well as summarizing goals and the process of the acquisition, as well as introducing the change champions and what they're doing for the company. And of course, these town hall meetings will ensure that all employees' voices are heard at the Q&A period after each town hall meeting. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into the pendant phase, where the tactics here will be focusing on training and culture. And the KPI here is to achieve 85% average scores on culture and exams. So first of all, we suggest that you hold a corporate training retreat to help introduce the acquired employees and make them feel welcomed. So it will be current Solotech employees to actually integrate the new acquired employees. And it really is just to make sure that the employees feel welcomed and the onboarding process can be started as soon as possible. And we know that some of these events may be a little unsustainable. So we suggest that you reduce waste by providing Solotech mugs as well as cutlery that can be reused again and again. And Culture Amp. So, introduce Culture Amp to facilitate online training. Culture Amp is a great tool to use because they have tools that you can use for engagement, performance, and just tracking your employees. So there will be an emphasis on culture. So cross-cultural training through the online modules, master classes, and workshops will be really great for your company. As well as implementing a buddy system. This is really great because you get to match up the new acquired employees with current Solotech employees. And what this will do is sort of let the new employees get to know what they're up for in your company. And it is known that this will increase the overall efficiency of the new employees, as well as increase their satisfaction with the onboarding process. And finally, the apply phase. And the tactics here will be focusing on communication and feedback. And the KPI here is to achieve an 80+% response rate for the pulse surveys. So, focusing on communication first. Connecting offices around the world, you have many global offices. You will keep Solotech's communication lines open. So, we suggest you do this by implementing Yammer. So, if you haven't heard of Yammer before, it is an enterprise social networking service that just keeps communication lines open between offices. And it works because all of your offices will be up to date with all of the office's news, and everyone can communicate there. It's kind of like a Facebook for the workplace. You can see a little example up above. So for Culture Amp, again, bringing this back. So Culture Amp also provides insights on your employees through feedback with a beautiful visual dashboard. So you can see the admin dashboard up above, and it really allows managers to facilitate feedback, surveys, and just really figuring out how well the integration is going for the culture of your company. And finally, celebrating new beginnings. After the stressful process of mergers, acquisitions, it's hard for you and it's hard for your employees. And it will be really great just to celebrate closing that deal and celebrating everyone's hard work.
All right, so let's take a look at the employee journey in an acquisition once again. And so basically, we're going to be leveraging weaknesses from previous acquisitions to use as the blueprint for future success. So once again, the before phase. At this point with our new strategy, we're implementing, or we'll have an HR in the due diligence process from the start. And so employee redundancies will be identified right away. There's a lot better internal communications. And we also have Solotech Town Hall. So what happens to the newly acquired employees? They know the role in the organization from day one. There's no uncertainty about whether they fit and how. Next, employees are integrated in the company. This is the journey phase. And so at this point, the work methods have been standardized across the company, and you have multiple knowledge and resource sharing opportunities. Your buddy systems, your change champions, your mentorship. And so, employees now feel satisfied, newly acquired employees feel satisfied with the implementation process, the ease of onboarding, and significant learning and growth opportunities within Solotech. And lastly, the monitoring in the after phase. And so at this point, as Hannah has mentioned, we're integrating Culture Amp. You're able to monitor your employee engagement, satisfaction, inclusion, diversity, all these elements. And so what does this do to employees? This gives them the opportunity to give feedback and actually have a voice within the company. So this can be used to correct actions and really take Solotech to that next level to maximize their potential. And so of course, reworking your acquisition process involves a significant investment. But again, investment in your people is never an investment loss. And so we're looking at roughly $4.8 million. And this year is assuming that your next acquisition involves 250 new net employees. This $4.8 million will be broken up into onboarding and training for your newly acquired employees, the cross-cultural training retreat, where all employees will be flown into the Montreal office, your successful acquisition party, your town hall, the flights for executives to maintain relationships with your offices around the world, as well as your subscription to Culture. And so $4.8 million is definitely a big investment. But taking into perspective, this is less than 2% of your 2018 net revenues. And so what would be even more costly is if you didn't invest in your employees. Forbes estimates that it can go from anywhere between 50% to 200% in turnover costs of the employee's base salary. And so just bear with me, with Mullen, for the assumptions that I have listed at the bottom. Your 2018 revenues divided by your number of employees. That gives you an average revenue to employee metric of $179,000. If we keep this constant over the next few years, as well as the industry turnover rate constant and your employee growth rate constant, you're looking at potential losses of up to $32 million in lost productivity and turnover in 2020 alone. And now, rethink your acquisition process, as successful as it may be, has inherent risks involved with it. So if your plan is to do acquisitions internationally over the next few years, if you do this too quickly, employees might start to feel like they lose connectivity, like they're just a small piece in a big game, which is why you need to encourage employee communication across all your offices, different mentorship programs. Next up, the cultural differences on the scorecard differ too much than what you would like. You do not pursue the acquisition. It doesn't matter how good the financials might look, having a culture mismatch can be detrimental to the success. And lastly, in terms of monitoring, low response rate on pulse surveys. What you need to do is hold these employees accountable. If they don't give you feedback on their process, their experience, there's no way you can really maximize your potential and get to the next level.
And we were here to assist you to improve the integration methods, considering cultural differences as well as geographical distance. For targeting the issues faster, we've implemented the ADKAR analysis to make sure you can find the root cause of why there's resistance with the acquisition. To support employees having buddy systems and the YAMR to communicate internally and ensure your successes within the company will help support your employees. And finally, to help your culture and maintaining it, using change champions to showcase your culture and how Soltech operates will only help your culture be maintained. Because anybody can copy your strategy, but nobody will be able to copy your culture. Thank you.
So maybe I missed it, but how are you gonna choose the change champion, like based on what?
Great question. So to pick your change champions, you need to pick your current employees that are great role models. They are great communicators and people look up to them. Their opinion is values within the company, and therefore it will be easy for them to communicate your values to the current new employees that will be integrated into Soltech. So they could be middle managers that are very respected by employees, and they will be great to showcase to the employees how Soltech operates.
In terms of the buddy system, how would you address the issue that there may be geographical distance between Soltech's home base in Montreal and an acquisition that's done overseas or in the US or another location?
Great question. For this issues, instead of having costly plane tickets or distances, we can use the online video conferences, and we can meet with these new employees. And with the town hall that will be flying anyways to the Montreal office, then they'll be meeting in person with the retreat and making sure that they have the right buddy system.
We are part of the top management team. Is there a role for us in your plan?
Sorry,
We are part of the top management team.
oh, yes.
Do we have a role?
Well, actually, yes. So your role starts in the beginning. So before the new company employee integration begins. So to a certain extent, you are acting as change champions. You need to be delivering the messages that change is on the way, and here are the steps that we're taking. It needs to be a consistent message throughout top management.
So the communication from senior leaders to middle managers is very key from your perspective.
Who manages the town hall meetings again?
It would be the figureheads, which are chosen from the change champions who are really outspoken and, yes, wonderful people.
And again, maybe I missed it, but what the timeline for the implementation of the tools, such as
actually starts from the initial phase of actually, contacting the target and it ends up, your final step is the integration. Is there anything, I guess, so what comes after that? Is that just monitoring or?
Exactly, yes.
Monitoring and also the successful acquisition are just to celebrate.
Is it a standard timeline for any acquisition or can you change?
It's on a case-by-case basis, depending on the size of your deal. If your next acquisition only involves up to 100 employees, the assumptions that we made were based on 250 employees, which is why things like Culture App and Yammer, these are really for big changes in, for accommodating to a large employee base.
Anything 16 weeks is enough just for a legal aspect of closing a deal and